back on the Bops and Bangers podcast with a very special guest. He's our first guest ever on the podcast. He's a celebrity gossip blogger, a YouTuber, podcaster, social media influencer, entrepreneur, father. He is Perez Hilton. Hello, Perez.
Hello, congratulations on your new show. And as somebody who's been doing this for a very long time, I will tell you three things. One, I'm pretty sure you're doing this because you're passionate about music. So if you actually care a lot about what you're talking about, it'll keep you going. Because two, I think a lot of people expect or hope get into podcasts with the idea that it might make them money, but most podcasts don't make any money. And if they do, they don't make a lot of money. But if you work hard at it, you could grow it, and anything is possible. And hopefully you upload yours on YouTube and maybe that grows, and who knows? Just because most don't doesn't mean that yours won't. So figure it out, and maybe, even do things that I don't, like start a Patreon for the podcast or subscriptions on YouTube after you grow it for a while and get a loyal base. There are other ways that maybe I'm not even exploring that you can. And third, and finally, like anything in social media, which is, kind of what this is as well, but not, this is content. But with anything, you have to be consistent. So if you tell your audience you're going to be doing it weekly, you have to be doing it weekly.
Yeah, for sure. No, yeah, and I love pop music. That's the reason why I do it. It's not my job or anything. It's just I do it for fun. And I wanted to have you on first because I know you love pop music as much as I do. And you've been involved with pop stars throughout your whole career. So it was a no-brainer. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, I mean, I love all music, not even just pop music. I love Latin music. I love great hip hop. I love R&B, soul, neo soul. I love, dance music. And actually, that's one of the wildest things. Like over the last 20 years, especially, like in the 80s and 90s, there used to be a big distinction between dance music and pop music. But now a lot of dance music is pop music, which is great. I love that it's just broadened its appeal.
Yeah, it's kind of like I feel like anything could be pop music now, right? Like
Yeah, popular. It just means it's
yeah,
popular.
yeah, and there's a lot of crossovers going on everywhere, so it could be anything. But I actually want to go back in time to like young Perez. You come from a Cuban family. You were born and raised in Miami. I'm guessing somewhat conservative, maybe. So what is your earliest memory of pop music, or what was your first introduction to pop music?
I remember that my mother, which is kind of funny because when I think of my mom now, or I think back on her then and now, my perception of her is of somebody that was never really hip or cool. But she did actually have a great record collection back in the day. And maybe she outgrew it, or maybe she just didn't care what I did, but she would let me listen to her vinyl all the time. And she had full-on LPs and 45s and a lot of really cool stuff, from like just wacky random singles from one-hit wonders to the Beatles to a lot of Spanish language music. And my first introduction to music really was my mother's record collection. She even had the Beatles on there. It was very eclectic.
Is there like any album or vinyl or anything, or like a cassette maybe that you bought first, like the first one you owned yourself?
I think the first two, well, I think the first two purchases that I made, I went to the record store because that's what you had to do back in the 90s. And I had money saved up, so I bought two things at once. And I think they came out around the same time. I should look it up to make sure that my memory is not foggy. Let me see. But I'll tell you, and then I'll look it up.
Okay.
I think, if I recall correctly, my first two album purchases ever were Ace of Base, The Sign, talk about a pop
Great song,
album,
yeah.
and Madonna's Erotica album.
That's my favorite Madonna album.
Ace of Base, The Sign. I would guess that was 92. Oh, it came out in 93. All right, 93. And then Madonna, Erotica. Well, Erotica probably came out in 92, I'm going to guess. That came out in 92. All right. So I bought it a little bit late. But I think, oh God, maybe I'm getting it wrong. Maybe about Erotica first. I know I had Erotica. Maybe Erotica was my first album. I don't know. One of those. Those were, there we go. I'll just say those were both early purchases. I would buy a lot of random stuff back in the day. I remember buying Madonna's Erotica album, the Ace of Base album. I bought, like, I'm trying to think of like very early purchases. Paula Abdul's Vibeology single.
Yeah.
Back when cassette singles were a thing, the Black Box single, everybody. Oh, everybody. And then I would buy like weird random stuff too, like the Gregorian chant album. That was like a huge pop culture sensation. Remember that, when those Gregorian monks did a chant album and it was like a hit? I freaking bought that. I don't even know why, but I did.
That's so cool. Well, you mentioned Madonna, right? And I know you're a huge fan of her. And you got the chance to meet her once, or maybe a couple times, I'm not sure. What was it like meeting her for the first time? And like, what was it like being in her presence and like her knowing who you are? Like, what was that like?
I mean, it was surreal, definitely, because it's one of those moments that you literally dream about, and then you're getting to live your dream. Only it didn't really go according to my dreams, because I felt like so dumb. I felt like such an idiot. Like I just didn't know what to say. I was awkward and uncomfortable. Like if I met Madonna now, I'm like, I've been doing what I do for 20 years, basically. Like, what's up? How you been? Girl, what's going on with your Instagram? Like, I would literally just, have a conversation with her as if she were a human being. But when I was young, she wasn't a human being to me. She was like a god. She was perhaps my biggest role model and inspiration, not just because I loved her music, but also because, I really resonated with the messaging that she said consistently throughout her career, which is, I may not be the prettiest, I may not be the most talented, but I work really hard. And, as a child of immigrants, a child of two Cubans that fled communism to start in this country all over again and, build something out of nothing, that was something that I grew up hearing as well. So it really landed, and it gave me hope, and I learned a lot from Madonna, to be fearless and not be afraid, specifically to be a provocateur, that's an important role that society needs, people to push the envelope.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned her Instagram right now, and I wanted to ask you, like, because I feel like nowadays she's kind of lost in the shuffle of icons, like, and I feel like she does not get like the credit she deserves. And I feel like it's partly
That's
because
her own doing, though.
That's what I was gonna ask you. Like, I feel like it's partly because of what she's doing now and like how she handles
Not
herself.
just because of social media. It's for many reasons. One, there came a shift. I mean, Madonna's mainly always been this way, but she is stuck in the past in some ways, meaning She always used to be very forward thinking, but she's stuck in the past in terms of Madonna thinks she's still as popular and relevant as she was 25, 30 years ago. And she's not, unfortunately. She's still an icon, but she doesn't have the pull. And she's historically, over the last 5 to 7 years, really mistreated and disrespected her fans in many ways, I would say. From starting her concerts painfully late, especially on weeknights. Madonna's fans are old. They're parents. They have to wake up to go work the next morning. And she's literally starting her show at 10:15 p.m. And then it's a 2-hour show and being done at 12:15 a.m. And then they have to get home. Like, that's just disrespectful and rude. There's no need for it. Or things like then when you do go see her in concert, you know, I get it. She's fighting so hard against being a legacy act, but she's not relevant anymore musically. She can release the best album of her career, and there will not be any hit songs off of it. Radio will not play it. She's too old, unfortunately. We live in a very ageist society. And like I said, it could be the best material she's ever done. It could be all bangers and they won't be hits. And she doesn't play the hits on tour. And people go see her because they want to see the hits. They don't want 75% new material. Like, I get it. It doesn't even need to be, you know, some legacy artists do 75% old material and just 25% new material. But at least have it be, at this point, it needs to be 50-50, I would say. Like 50% of your set list old songs and 50% new songs, if not more. And Madonna knows that, and she's a selfish artist, and she doesn't want to give the people what they want. She still wants to be the provocateur and do what she wants and you know, in a way, take her fans for granted. But look at what happened. I don't think her last tour was a theater tour necessarily by choice. Yeah. I don't think it was just by choice, but she could always turn that around. If Madonna did a Vegas residency where it was just the hits, it would re-spark things and remind everybody, fudge, she created it all. She did it before everybody else did it and did it so well. But she will never do a Vegas residency, unfortunately.
Like, even now that like things are like everyone's doing Vegas. You just saw Katy Perry in Vegas. Like, everyone's doing Vegas. You don't think she's...
I mean, the thing is, she could even do like a very limited, like Madonna is so big. If she wanted to do a Vegas residency at the arena, at the T-Mobile Arena, she could do that.
Yeah.
But she won't want to do it. And if she does do a Vegas residency at the T-Mobile Arena, she'll be like, fine, but it's not going to be a greatest hits show. And like, nobody's going to want to pay for that. Nobody wants that. You need to do a fucking greatest hits show. 1 or 2 new songs and the rest have to be hits. And she has so many hits.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Hopefully she does something because unfortunately, time's running out, and I don't want her to be like lost in the show. Like, you think of like Prince, Whitney.
It doesn't even need to be in Vegas, to be honest. Like
New York City.
You know, Billy Joel did a residency in New York City in Madison Square Garden for a long time. I think he was playing there. Maybe what was it, once a month, or I forget. I forget how often he was doing it. But Madonna could do a once a month Madison Square Garden residency because she lives in New York City, allegedly. I think that's where, who knows where she's based out of these days. I think New York. Yeah. She was in Portugal for a bit, but I think she's back in New York. If she wanted to do a monthly residence, but Madonna couldn't do a monthly residency in New York City because her show requires, for safety reasons even, it requires rehearsal, and it needs to be fresh in her mind and the dancers' minds and everybody. And you just can't take a month off and expect, I mean, you can, but then you might have to do like a week of rehearsal every month, you know, but do you want to do a week of rehearsal? Maybe Madonna actually would enjoy doing a week of rehearsal every month. I feel like just doing Vegas twice a year, she could do 14 shows total, 7 shows each time, take one night off in between shows. So you're in Vegas for 3 weeks, 1 week of rehearsal, 2 weeks of shows. That's your 7 shows. Come back 6 months later for another 3 weeks. And, you know, that's
That
kind
could
of
work.
easy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Thought
hopefully,
about these things.
yeah, hopefully she figures it out. She'll take your advice, maybe.
I mean, she's Madonna, though. Even though she's done a piss poor job of maintaining her legacy, nobody can erase her past. Nobody can take away everything that she's done. On the flip side, somebody that's done an exceptional job of not only maintaining their legacy and status, but honing it and improving it and lifting themselves up is Celine Dion. Celine Dion has always been an A-lister, but I feel like, you know, because of her people-pleasing ways and not taking herself seriously and having a big heart and just giving the people what they want, she's really elevated herself.
Yeah, definitely. And she's able to, like, she does Vegas and then she goes on tour
Exactly.
and she's still doing music, which Madonna could do as well. We were talking about social media as well. And you are always on top of social media. Like every time there's a new platform, once I get there, like Perez is already there. You're always on top of it. And you're also very aware of what it takes for any artist to like really put their music out there, especially now that the music industry has changed a lot. If you were an aspiring pop star or pop singer or any singer really, what would be your strategy to like put your music out there and like make yourself known now?
I'm old school. I think it really has to be about the music because you can't fake a hit. You can't force it. Even if you pull in favor, like for example, right? Let's say you're a brand new wannabe pop star whose father or mother happen to be billionaires, okay? And if you have a shit song, but you pay all of the top influencers, the biggest influencers right now to make videos featuring your song, if the song is a shit song, it's not going to be a hit, no matter how much you work social media. You have to, unfortunately, you have to create both these days if you really want to stand out. You have to create hit songs that are also that the people also want to share. Like it's not just like, for example, one of my all-time favorite artists is Sarah McLachlan. Fumbling Towards Ecstasy is easily one of my top 2, tied for #1 album of all time. That and Tori Amos's Little Earthquakes. Those are my #1 albums of all time. But if Sarah McLachlan released that album today, it would flop, I think, even though it's phenomenal. Because you need to, if you need, unfortunately, to be like Gail. She has that ABCDEFU song. That is a great song. It's a hit song, but more than being a hit song, it's a song that you hear and you're like, oh, I need to make a video with that song. I need to share that song. You know, like Doja Cat is also like that as well. That's one of the main reasons why Doja Cat is successful. She creates hit songs that also encourages people to share them, to make content with them. And eventually, if you hear a great song in many different ways, and if you hear it enough over and over and over again, you're going to want to make your own content with it or just stream it or listen to it more and more.
Yeah.
I would say Doja Cat, more than anybody, has really mastered the art of music meets smartly used, meets approaching it from a very smart social media mindset.
Right. Yeah, they kind of go in hand right now. Now, in a recent episode of your podcast, you
But
predict.
it's interesting.
Go ahead.
But I'll let you say that. But you can be wrong a lot of the time too. Like
Well, yeah.
that's why I think it's important. It's a few things. And artists might disagree with me, but that's why they need to be honest with their priorities. What are your priorities as an artist? Is it to make the music you want to make? Okay, then I respect that. But a lot of artists want to have hits. However, what happens over and over again is when an artist does get hits, they stop listening to their A&R person, or they stop listening to the label, and they're like, well, I made these hits happen. But you forget, well, no, the label played a very important part. They helped a lot. Maybe they even helped shape the songs or the direction or whatever it might be. A recent great example and a reminder that there's no sure things. Well, there's two of them actually. First, wait, let me see who was on that song. But the first one is, Lizzo released her comeback single a few months ago. And it was technically a hit. Like, I think it might have debuted in the top 10, but literally it was a flop. It was unforgettable. It debuted in the top 10 and then dropped right away and then dead. And she had Cardi B on that song, okay? Massive flop, even though it was a top 10 song. And I'm sure that Lizzo thought, ooh, there's so many hooks. It's so catchy. It's a motto. It's a moment. And she was wrong as fuck. And if I had to wager, she stopped listening to people. She's like, I'm Lizzo. She let success get to her head, and she thought she was big enough to release whatever song she wanted, and it would be a hit. And she was wrong.
Yeah.
So you have to listen to a lot of feedback. You have to listen to your label and the A&R people, the experts. You have to listen to radio. People, because of streaming, because it's, younger artists also, so many of them now, because streaming has existed for many years, and artists like Olivia Rodrigo or whomever, some artists that are now popular maybe didn't even grow up listening to the radio. They just grew up streaming. But you cannot underestimate the importance of radio. Radio is what will take your song to the next level. And the perfect example of that is the number one song on the Hot 100 last year of 2021, Dua Lipa's Levitating, which ironically never even made it to number one. It peaked at number 2, but it was still the biggest hit of the year on the Hot 100. It's still getting it's a massive monster hit because of radio. And then that also helps and fuels streaming. Some people maybe still listen to the radio in their car, and then when they're at home, they listen to Apple Music or Spotify or whatever it might be, So, you need to listen to the radio programmers. You need to listen to your label. You need to listen to your manager. You need to listen to other people and get out of your bubble and acknowledge that you're not always going to be right in regards to what is a hit, but you are right with regards to, you're the artist and you release what you want to release.
Yeah. No, yeah. Radio, it's crazy how radio still plays like a big part, but it does. So in a recent episode of your podcast, you predicted that Taylor Swift will eventually become the highest selling artist of all time. And I actually agree with you, but what do you think will separate her from someone like Adele that's also selling like crazy numbers? Like down the road, do you think there's
sheer volume? I mean, Taylor's releasing way more content.
Well, that's true.
Adele releases a new album once every 6 years. Taylor Swift still has several re-recorded albums to put out. Plus, she's incredibly prolific. And her fans are still consuming it. All these decade and a half later, all these years later, her fans are still invested.
True. Yeah. Well, and also like I was looking at the rollout for 30 and the rollout for the re-release of Red. Of course, I think 30 sold more. But there was like I feel like Adele, and you were just talking about like the old school way of doing things. I feel like Adele still does it very old school.
Yes.
But do you think that at some point that's gonna like not be the case just based on how the world is, the music industry is
Well,
working or
Adele is old school, but she also she's smart, and she is aware that the world has changed because when you look back and you remember, like, you know, we're all older now and we forget that when her last album came out, 25, it wasn't available for streaming the first 2 weeks. She kept it off streaming for 2 weeks. She did not do that with 30
right.
because she couldn't have. She knows, she's smart enough to know the music industry has completely changed, but not all of it for the worse. I mean, look at in 2021, vinyl sold more than CD or it's sold so much. Like the comeback of vinyl was ginormous in 2021, and that's a great moneymaker for artists. And also, she did do some interesting things as well, like that makeup video with Nikki tutorials on YouTube. So, if she wasn't, that's, trying to reach a different audience, I would say. So, it was a fairly traditional rollout, but some of the moment and of the times things as well.
Right. And I think she gets her audience like compared to Taylor's. 'Cause it's still different. Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to do like a rapid fire round with you where I'll give
Yeah.
you the name of a pop star and if you can tell me your favorite song from them. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, the first one's gonna be Taylor Swift.
I would say You Belong With Me or Getaway Car,
Okay.
but
Adele.
maybe You Belong With Me because it just makes me feel happier.
Adele.
Um, Someone Like You, of course.
Katy Perry.
Although second, I got to give two.
Okay,
I'll also
give
say
two.
Water Under the Bridge because Water Under the Bridge also makes me feel good too. Whereas Someone Like You is a cathartic experience, and like I just release so much when like I have to sing along.
Right. I mean, it's not easy to pick one. Katy Perry.
I would say Hot and Cold, and also Hot and Cold. That was easy.
Amy Winehouse.
Rehab.
Lady Gaga.
Bad Romance.
Kylie Minogue.
Although that would have been, Poker Face is right up there too. So, but Bad Romance. Kylie Minogue. Oh God, can't get you out of my head.
Celine Dion.
It's all coming back to me now.
That's
Oh no,
right.
and I'm not saying that just because it's a trend now. I just love the epicness of it.
Yeah, no, it's
And
my
it's
favorite
just,
song too.
there's more movement to that song than My Heart Will Go On.
And it's like
Like
more epic too.
it's there, it's like more like a roller coaster. Like there's more twists and turns to It's All Coming. It's just a more exciting song, but My Heart Will Go On is epic,
Yeah, it's an yeah. Rihanna.
S&M because I was in the music
Video.
video for it.
Britney Spears.
Baby One More Time and Stronger.
Madonna.
Holiday. Easy.
Easy. And lastly, Gloria Estefan.
Conga.
Conga. Cool. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Have
See
a
ya.
good one.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
And that was my conversation with Perez Hilton. I thought he was a really nice guy for taking some time out of his busy schedule to talk to me about pop music. Because of Adele's announcement, we didn't get to talk about his CBD gummies, but he's selling CBD gummies now. You can find out more information on the website mytrue10.com. You can find out more about Perez on his socials at the Perez Hilton. And he also has a podcast, the Perez Hilton podcast with Chris Booker every week. It's one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. And speaking of podcasts, I hope you guys like this new revamped version of the show. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. That would help us a lot. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please follow us. Leave a review, a rating. Anything you do helps us out, and we really appreciate it. And we have so much more to come in the coming weeks. So thank you for joining us, and we hope you guys have a great week.